Hello and welcome to this week's GTO Coach and Go. I'm Jim Delleman with Group Travel Odyssey, and each week we want to bring you more information and insight on our GTO system. Before we get started, I do want to remind you to follow us on LinkedIn and also hit the subscribe button, which is probably down around here somewhere, and also ring the little bell on YouTube, and it will allow you to know whenever we have new content up on our YouTube channel. This afternoon, we would like to discuss a little bit about reporting and the reporting features in our GTO system. So I am going to welcome right now our network engineer, Corey Vries. Welcome, Corey.
Hello, hello. How is everybody?
I think so far, so good. So far, so good. So today you're going to take us through some of the reporting features in GTO?
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this because so many people have been asking, well, how do I see this information and how do I see that information? And it's all about the reporting, and learning how to do the reporting is a great way to set up your own reports and see the information that you want to see sort of at your fingertips.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Well, fantastic. Just a reminder to everybody who's watching, if you do have questions, please go ahead and you can enter your questions in the comment section and ask those, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we possibly can. If you can't get your questions to type in for some reason, you can email them to me at jim@gtonetwork.com. Again, jim@gtonetwork.com, and that's appearing right now at the bottom of the screen. So let's go ahead and get started, and we hope that we can help you become much more efficient with using the GTO system. Corey, take it away.
Awesome. Okay, so when we're talking about reporting, we're going to talk about several different things. One of them, the first thing we're going to talk about is sort of where and how you do it, where you do it in the system, and the anatomy of how those reports are set up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look on actually how to set them up and what they might look like. So let me share my screen real quick. If I can remember how to do this these days. I think I'm going to choose this one. Hopefully everybody is seeing my page.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So when you log in, I'm logged in as a test user today in our test environment. So there's going to be some functionality in here that may not be in your setup, but all the processes are going to be the same. And one of the things you'll notice is that we're sitting on our home dashboard, and this is a place that you should start no matter what. Many of you start in the My Apps. Of course, that's where you'd be. But when you go to the Sales Manager, we'll start at Sales Manager. When you go there, you kind of always want to be here at your home screen. You can hit the home button if you're not there, or you can actually hit the tab again too to get to your home screen. The reason why this is a great place to start is because a lot of your navigation can be here. And because a lot of the reporting that you can do already sits on this page. So for instance, we have the logo. This should be your logo here. We have some buttons to go to new places and list all trips and things like that. You can search for things. And by the way, this is just a reminder, these dashboards are customizable. So however you want this to look is really up to you. I could make this search for accounts instead, or I can add search for accounts. If you think that you're going to do something a lot from your dashboard, let's get it on there. But you'll also notice some other items. For instance, here we have a current user's activity calendar. Here we have a status report bar graph about trips. And down here, we actually have a list of all the trips that are under our test account that we've been working on. All three of these are different kinds of reports. This is a table report down here with the list all. This is a graphing report here with our trip status. And then we have a calendar report with our user activities. So no matter what homepage you're on, you're going to see some sort of reporting on there. If you wanted this to have different reports on it, we can make that happen. But you have to think about what it is you want to report before you do that. And so you say to yourself, well, where can I do reports? I haven't seen that functionality. Here on the dashboard is not the place where you'd start, because the first thing you have to do is ask yourself, what do I want to report? What is it that I'm searching for? When you click on one of these tables here, generally you see a list of everything. So when I click on accounts, I'm going to see all the accounts. I'm not doing such great business right now because I only have 5 accounts. But remember, you may see this list and see thousands of accounts. And that becomes very difficult to manage a whole group of things like that with so many. So what you may want to do is create a report that just shows you certain schools or accounts or organizations based upon some criteria that you set. The same thing here with contacts. I'm just going to go to this contacts table. This lists all of them. Same thing with your trips. It lists all of them. So, and if you want this to look different, you can. And a lot of you, I have noticed, are very good about doing a filter so that you're doing a search through them for, let's say that you wanted to see all your trips that were in commitment. Many of you have figured out that if you show a filter and you choose commitment, it will show you all your trips that are in commitment. But what if you only wanted them from Florida? Well, you could go to the filter as well, but you have to do that every time you come to this page. So if you move off this page and come back to this page, you still have to fill in those filters. But if you created a report to tell you those things, then you could just go to the report with one click. So let's go back to contacts for a minute. Let's say I want to just see just a list of all my band directors. You could look at this list. You could filter it down by band director if you wanted to do that. But that actually, again, you have to research it every time. So let's create a report, let's say, to do that for us. How do we do that? So right underneath contacts home, you'll see a thing that says reports and charts. If you drop down the arrow, it will give you a list of reports. Now, many of these reports have been created and shared with you, showing you your information. But many of them may not be very applicable to you, so you probably don't want those. But list changes will sort of give you a list of the changes that have been made today or ones that are added today. A couple of them are in the common, and then different categories that they might be placed in. When you create one, you're creating one for yourself, right? So you could use this if I looked up my contacts. That's certainly one way to do that, where you would look up by person to do that. You could do added today. These are actually the contacts that I've added today by creating certain criteria to give me just those. Let's go to let's create a new one though. What I wanted was a list of all the band directors. So I'm going to click a new one. And when you click a new one, it's going to ask you what kind of report or chart you want. A table report is generally the most common report that we have. It creates what is basically looks like an Excel spreadsheet with columns and rows and giving you the information in sort of a grid fashion. Kanban reporting, if you're familiar with that, deal with sort of data as cards in columns that you can move those. For instance, a to-do list would be a great Kanban report if you wanted to shift it from one level to another. You could actually take all your trips and have them in the various stages of, like in its different statuses, you could have a Kanban report. A summary report just pretty much adds up things. So if you wanted to know how many trips you had in commitment, how many trips you had in discovery, that would be where you'd want to do that. A chart to visualize your data, that would be like that bar chart that we were looking at earlier. A map displays records. One of the greatest versions of the map record or map chart that you can see is if you went into Supplier Manager, you can actually search for suppliers in our already created map, where it asks you for a destination and then some sort of other criteria. And then you can actually physically see a map of the city that you asked for and all its attractions or all its hotels. A calendar report, which is much like what we see with the activities that we saw on our dashboard. Also, a little later, we're going to see a place where there's a calendar report of all the trips that would be going, sort of on a calendar and that's what we call a timeline report. So let's just go ahead and start with a table report. And by the way, you can create all kinds of reports, and you can delete them, and you can add them, and you can change them. So when you're playing around with this, you're not doing anything to the data except reporting it in a different way. So if you create something that you don't like, delete it or change it and create a new one, or just play around and see what comes out for you. But I'll give you the basics on how to create these reports. So we're going to create it. It's going to ask you some things. One of the things is names. Most people forget the names. So what ends up happening is they have a bunch of new table reports. So it'll be new table report 1. You really need to give it a better name, but I always forget to name it something. We're going to call it band directors. And this is just, you don't have to put a description if you don't want to, but if you do put one, you are able to show that on that report so that you can, like, it'll tell you what the report is. But I know that it's going to be band directors because it's the name of the report. Right now, everybody should have only the ability to save a report for you. And so it should say in the group mine. And that's when you go to look at the reports and charts later. You'll see once you create one, it will have a column here that says mine, and it will be all of the ones that you have created. Now, you want to display some columns. So you have to think about, what is it that I want to display? Well, I want a list of the band directors. So I know that I want, there are default columns. If you just want to use the default columns, this is what they are. So this is what will show up on that report if you don't tell it. That's a lot of information. I don't want that many default columns. I'm going to choose my columns. So all you have to do is, I want like the last name, and I know I want my first name, right? And I probably want maybe the account that they're related to. That's probably nice. We call it, oops, sorry about that, folks. I think we call that school organization. And then I want it to be a listing, and that's really all I need. Now I can put the title on there, right? And it's going to show me band director. But since that's the actual report that I'm creating, I don't necessarily need that on there because that's the report. All the people on there are going to be band directors. So I'm not going to add that to my list. As we scroll down, you're going to see report formulas. That's an advanced level of reporting. So I'm not going to talk about that today. You are certainly welcome to read about it and experiment with it if you'd like. But for our intents and purposes, we're going to use our own filtering that's built in. If you just want to show all contacts, I'm basically going to get a report of every person's first, last name in their school. That's actually a pretty useful report. I could save that one and just call it contacts. But and that way it's filtered down all the information that was given to you originally. Makes it a little easier to see. We're going to filter our contacts though. And when we do that, we get to choose what we get to filter. So I'm going to choose that their title includes the value, and then it gave me all the list of values. I'm going to see the ones that I chose as band director. Dynamic filters are ones you can filter right off the report. We're going to use the ones that are in default because there's only 3. If you have a lot of columns in your report, dynamic filtering are just ones that you can filter right on the report itself. We're not using that function right now, but you're certainly welcome to play around with that. And now we're going to come back and sort and group in just a minute. But right now, we're just going to go ahead and save this report. It's going to take me to that report, and it's going to show me the contacts that are band directors. So Diana Prince, Ginger Snaps, and John Jacob are all band directors at their schools. One's at Justice League, one's at Lorna Doone, and the other one's at Doritos. So that tells me that those are the band directors right there. Clearly, you're going to have a list that's much longer than mine, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what if I want band directors that are in New York? All right. So what we're going to do is from this report, we're going to come over here to this button right here where you customize your report. Now, the nice thing is you don't have to remember that it's there, because in reality, when you hover over some stuff, it's going to tell you, what's that mean? Oh, edit all the contacts. No, I don't want to do that. Enter the full screen. No, I don't really want to do that either. More actions, right? So you can also do these things with it. But if you hover over this, customize this report, we're going to add to the customization there. So basically what I can do is I want to filter one more thing. Not only do I want to filter the contact where the title is band director. Actually, let's do this. Let's see if there are any band directors who are also orchestra directors. So I'm going to hit this plus button, and it's going to give me another thing to search. And I'm going to search that title again. But this time, I'm going to ask it to also search for the orchestra directors. Now what's going to happen is, as I save it and I go to it, I find that I don't have any band directors that are also orchestra directors, right? But let's say what I wanted to do was find out all the people who are band directors or choir directors. Now here's where it gets a little tricky, because first you have to learn to spell choir right. So I want a choir director. I need to get orchestra out of there, right? So we're going to scroll down to orchestra. We're going to uncheck that. Now it's choir director, but I don't want with them both. I want all of them. I want the people who are band directors and the people who are choir directors, right? So I'm going to change this to any. So now it's going to give me whether or not you're a band director or a choir director. And we should find that there are now more people available to us because these people are choir directors and, choir directors and band directors. So by changing that, we can narrow down or increase the amount of information that we have. So if you wanted to do a search for 8th grade teachers, if you wanted to do 8th grade teachers who teach science, now there's a caveat to all this information, and that is the information that you have in your program has to be there. So when I open up Diana Prince, I think she's out on her invisible jet right now, but if you look, I've given her the tags of band and marching band or band director. So if you don't have the title there or you don't have a tag there, then you're not going to be able to search that information. The information has to be in there in order for it to search the information. So having clean information, which I believe is a great topic to discuss in the future, is super important. So if you're if you just took some time to clean up that information, then you're going to save yourself a lot of hassle because your reporting becomes much stronger. Right now, I don't have any addresses in here. I don't have any emails. I don't have any personal information. You could literally do searches of people whose wives' names or spouses' names are Jack, but only if you have the information in there. You could do a report by contact birthday. You could create a calendar of contact birthdays so that you could look at that report and send out birthday cards when it comes time. So as long as the information is there, you're set to go. You could list all your active status in contacts. Let's do sort of another example. So here on my accounts page, I could do reports. So for things like, let's go here and create a new report. Well, this one actually was done for me earlier. Let me sort. This one's sort. Oh, no. I'll do this. Sorry, my fault. Let me start a new report. And it's a table report. And now we're going to call this accounts grouped by state. Again, it's mine. I want custom columns. And really what I want is the school organization, right? And I want, you know what? That's really all that's really all I want for the moment. So I just want a list of schools by their state. So we knew how to filter, but now we really want to show all of them. But what we want to do is group them in a different way. Now, let's stop and talk about some terms. Sort is the order in which you see the information. Grouping is how they're all shoved together on a report. So just sorting something could be alphabetical, it could be by a number. So if I were going to sort on something from low to high, I could select any field. And right now, if I were to select that I'm going to sort by state, then when I save this report, I have them in state order, but I didn't put an address on there, so I don't know what state is what, right? So I've sorted them by state, but I really want to group them by state. So we're going to go back to this, and instead of sort, we're going to choose sort and group. So what's going to happen now is when I save this by sorting and grouping, the report is going to tell me what the state is and who is in it. What the state is and who is in it. Again, this is a by the way, a great indication of why you want to make sure your information is clean. Because right now I have one New York school and one NY school. And if they both said New York, they would show up. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Delleman test account. I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to change the state to New York. See if I put a space there. I don't think I did. Because what I want to do when I go back, now watch this, right? I'm on the account. I want to go to that report I just created. Here it is right here, accounts grouped by state. One click, I'm back to that report. And you'll see they're grouped now by New York. So you could simply do a listing there. Now, let's say on this report, we don't want to group it by state. We want just a list of our New York schools, right? So I would go down here to the filter, and I want to filter the state by New York. Now when I click OK, it's only going to show me the two New York schools grouped together. If you wanted to just find your schools in New York, New Jersey, we add that level. Oh, they're not, sorry. They're not going to both be in New York and New Jersey. So if anybody out in Cyberland caught that, right? What I did was I said that both of those things has to be true. I want either one of them to be true. I heard some of you. I know some of you out there, and I know you were telling me not to click, and I did it anyway. So now what I have is a school in New Jersey, two schools in New York, and I just have that information instead of everything and every bit of the information. I will remind you what it looked like again on your homepage was all the schools with an address and account status. A lot of people, because a lot of you have active accounts and non-active accounts, make sure you add active if you only want active accounts. But let's say that you wanted to do some scoping out. I mean, you spent a lot of money getting all these schools into your system over the years. And if you wanted to then look at the counts that are non-active to reach out to those schools on times when you're not busy putting your trips together as a way to, is to do your prospecting, then you can do that. Just look at your accounts that are inactive in a place. If you have several salespeople and you want them to look at your inactives, but you give them each a state to go search through, and then if that school has closed down, you can close out that account. You can delete it. You could make it inactive permanently. Put a note in there that says this school is closed. You could do whatever you wanted to with that, but you could create a report for them to work off of. Because now all I have to do is to go to the Delaman account. Let's go back to our report. So I'm tasked with going to my schools into New York and calling to make sure that everything's okay with them after the hurricane that blew through. I can go to my report here, and I can immediately then go to the account where I would have all my information. The same thing with our contact list that we did. If you had done a report with birthdays, if you had kept that kind of information, here's mine with band directors. I have this cool thing I want band directors to know to do. Here I have a list of my band directors. I literally could put their phone number and email. The reason I didn't, by the way, is because in putting in my people, I didn't put that information in here, but their phone number and information could be sitting right here for you. You could just go down the list and call them one by one to make sure they were okay from the store, or no, that they wanted to know about this cool new thing that for band directors.
Hey, Corey.
Yes.
We have a question here. Is there a limit to the number of reports that somebody can create?
No, there isn't. As a matter of fact, you can make as many as you'd like. I will caution you, however, because this list gets to be super long after a while, right? But if you've named them correctly, like, if you don't just name them something willy-nilly or forget that you don't want to call them new report, you can have as many as you'd like and have them all sitting there. What's really nice, and sort of the next thing I'm going to mention, so when I go to trips, you'll see a lot of common report. Well, not a lot, but you'll see some more common reports here. Yours probably looks a little bit different than mine because there are some other common reports that we've sort of created to help you out. But I wanted to mention that you could create one for a report for your trips in every stage. So you could have a list of your discovery trips, a list of your commitment trips, a list of your pending trips, you could make all of those. They could sit right here in this area, and all you have to do is click on them. They'll open up, right? So just you can make as many as you'd like.
And are they deletable then? Like if something happens that you decide you never need to use that report again, can they?
Absolutely. So we'll go back to contacts for this. Now I'd probably keep my band director report, but in fact, it's cluttery. I can make this again if I wanted to. When I go to this report and I put it back into customize, you'll see that I'm able to delete that report. Oh. And so when you delete the report, it's going to ask me. And then when I go here again, I no longer have that as an option. And people are really sad when they accidentally delete a report, but don't forget, you can just recreate it again, right? So that's not really a problem. So yeah, excellent questions. One thing I'm going to mention about reporting is to remember what it is you're trying to report is super important, especially when it comes to trips versus proposals. Remember that GTO has the great function to where you can create many proposals under one trip. But most of the time and you work mostly in a proposal and then sort of go to the other proposal when you're working and forget that the trip level is there. And when you're doing reporting, though, you're generally trying to report on a trip, not a proposal. So let's say, for instance, you had 4 trips, each with 2 proposals attached to them. You don't have 8 trips. So if you did a trip report in proposals, it's going to say that you have 8 trips. But in reality, you just have 4. So when you're looking at trips, make sure that you're reporting from the right spot. Now, there are occasions when you want to look at your proposals. For instance, as a person who has to help people a lot, I actually have a report that I've placed up here in my toolbar. And what you can't read is this says proposals and date edit order, which means that when I see a proposal, when I pull that up, it shows me the proposals that are being worked on in the order that the reverse, like the one that's been worked on the latest is on top, because generally when someone calls with a question, they're working on that proposal, so it's sitting at the top of the screen. It makes it easy for me to navigate to. So that would be an instance where I want a proposal. If you want to look at the listing of your proposals so you know you have to work on each proposal, that's certainly okay. But do remember, when you're doing reporting, trips is most of the time where you want to go. So for instance, in trips and reporting, if I wanted, like, this is new trips created this week is sort of already there. But notice that this is an all trips status chart. So I'm going to go to this real quick. Okay, this was a Kanban report. I was actually thinking it was a graphic report, but this is actually a Kanban report where you have these trips in, like, I know that there's 2 trips in discovery and we have 4 trips in opportunity that we're sort of dealing with. And then we have some in commitment as well, right? So just understanding, you can kind of see this is sort of like a funnel for you. And when you're a salesperson, you literally can come here, and right now this is based upon showing a group, right? But you can actually filter these trips as well to be only your trips. What you would do is you would find, and that field would be salesperson. It would not be. It would. We call it tour consultant at the moment. Where the tour consultant is the current user, right? You could choose you or is equal to somebody else. But when you're choosing is the current user is always best, because that's you. It's always you. So for instance, when I save this report now, it's going to ask me to resave it as a different name. My Kanban. So now what this is doing is it's show it when I go to I'm going to exit out of here. I'm going to go to my reports and charts. Here's my Kanban right here. Now what it's showing me is the trips that are associated with me only. Now, since we're in the test account, that's probably almost the same amount that we had beforehand, but this would eliminate all the other salespeople in your company so that you're just looking at your trips. If we wanted to do the same thing, but we wanted a chart instead, let's do a chart real quick. So this is a chart of status. I'm going to pick a type of chart. You can do bar chart, stack chart, horizontal bar, or waterfall, whatever you want. Even a funnel report for those super salespeople out there that like your funnels. That would be a great report, right? I'm going to do a pie chart just for fun, right? It's going to say, what is it you wanted? What is it that you're wanting to do? I want the sales status is what I want. I want them grouped by equal values. Right? What happens when I save this? Nope. Sorry, I didn't do the y-axis. Sorry, number of trips. So it's asking you, what's the data value? So what I'm saying is I want them grouped by sales status, and I want to know the number of each trip in that status. When I save this report, it's going to show me by pie chart, right? I've got a lot of commitment. I must be doing pretty well this season. Some in opportunity, some in discovery. Now, the one thing about charts that is great is you're like, well, great. It tells me that 5 trips are in commitment. If you click on it, it will show you those 5 trips that are in commitment. When you go back and you want to know what those actual trips are that are in our opportunity, you can choose opportunity. All right, we'll show you the opportunity trips. So that's the really nice thing about these charts, is you can drill down in them. And in fact, when you're on your sales manager homepage, I had created a bar chart that had that same thing. You can click on that bar and it will also take you to that list. Now, I will also say that, here we go. This was a listing of user activities. So you should know that you can add activities to tell you to do something, send a proposal, follow up with somebody. You can see that they're on my activity calendar. I've created this calendar so that past due will show up in red. So these are all past due. If there are ones in the future, and I don't know that I have any in the future, so sorry about that, they'd be in green because I set it up that way. And you can play around with that. There's a place called color code. You'll see it. It's not hard to do and certainly not necessary to run a report. But one of the cool things about a calendar report is the fact that you can click and drag that activity to place it on a different date. So if you're like too busy on Thursday, the August 12th, just move it to the 13th, right? So, or move it to the 3rd. Somebody said, how do you move it to the next month? Well, I move it down to the week you can do it. And then I'm going to send it down here. Right. And it goes to where I need it to go. And in fact, I can click on it and go to that activity, which this one happens to be send proposal to client, right? Which is great to have. When I refresh this page though, I want you to notice that it's in green because it's in the future, not in the past.
Hey, Corey, we have another question just about general reporting too.
Yes.
When you have a report open, can you use the filters on the top of the report to adjust a report?
You sure can. So let's say you do a report like, well, let's see. Where did I do reports? I did a contact. Oh, I deleted my contacts one. Let's go to my accounts. Accounts grouped by state. If I had, let's actually do this real quick. Let me add to this. See, like this would be a great example. And I'm gonna get to the question, I promise. Where I want the address city, and I want the address state, and I want the date. I'm just looking to see. Let's just see any tags just for some information there, right? So if I wanted to save this report, sorry, I don't want to filter this report. So, all right. So I'm going to take the filter off. Now it's going to show me a little bit more information. It's going to show me them still grouped by state, but now has sort of information there. So let's say I wanted to filter this down to this list, but I wanted to just know which schools have dance. So I'm going to press this little filter button right here, show column filters. And I can press that filter on tags. It's going to give me all the tags that are there. I'm going to say just the ones that are dance. And now it's going to give me only the ones that are dance. I can exit out of that. It'll show them all again to me, but now I want the ones that show me 8th grade. And it will show you 8th grade. The problem here, just so you know, and this is why you have to decide, do you want the information permanent or do you want the information temporary? Because I just temporarily wanted to know who's 8th grade, right? And again, if your information in the system does not have that information, it won't say that. So I would definitely go through your information, especially your current clients and contacts, and get that information in there so that your reporting becomes much more robust. It's not that it hurts it being in there without it, but think of the things you could do if that information were there. Let's say I only wanted trips that were in Oakland, or accounts. It will show me only the ones in Oakland. You're already doing it by state, but if we hadn't grouped it by state, we just had them all listed here, we could do that. But let's say I go to test account and I do something with test account. Now I type away, and I back button my way into that report again. The filter that I used is gone. So when you filter a report on the fly, you'll either have to open in a new tab, right? Which would be, if you want to open in a new tab, by the way, you control and click the eyeball. I don't know. Does it come up when I, is my screen showing the new account, the account 5568?
Yes, it is.
Okay, awesome. So I could do that. And then when I want to go back, I can exit out of that and I'm there. You can do that anywhere in the system. But if you go forward and you come back to this report, all temporary filters will be erased. So you have to ask yourself, how permanent do I want that information? Now you can do many, you'll start to drive yourself a little bit crazy when you do your first one. Your first ones are super easy because you're like, oh, I just want to know this. But when you want to start knowing when trips, like you want to know all your commitment trips that are traveling in May, right? That is something that reporting can do. If you want to know all your contacts that are in a state, or you know, you can do that. Those are actually relatively easy. And in fact, when you go to Trip Manager, let me just show you real quick that in Trip Manager, we have some different reports. We have a status report. Right now, all of our trips for the test environment are in contracting status, but this shows the status. This trip calendar report, you'll see that now what happened, this is what we call a timeline report. It says calendar report, it's really a timeline report because it's showing you that this trip is leaving on the 24th of November, coming back the 29th of November. And you can see all your trips at one time, right? And how many are going? This group is clearly going on 3 trips at the same time. And you can sort of, as you go through the calendar, I don't know when all of our trips are, but as you go through the calendar, you can see month by month when those trips are, right? As opposed to just a list. But for instance, this tasks list, I ordered to be by due date. So send entree choices and dietary restrictions form to the client that is due up on the 29th of this month. As we scroll down, right, we'll see the ones that are coming farther and farther away because I ordered this, I sorted it by due date. So if we took actually a look at this, if we customize this report a little bit, you'll see what I did, which is I chose my columns and then I said tasks that are not complete. So complete is not equal to checked. We could have actually put this. This is interesting. Yeah, you can do any sort of filtering, but you have to. Some of you may have been like, why couldn't you have done where complete is equal to unchecked? Well, unchecked wasn't one of the choices that I had, so I had to put as not equal to. And in fact, when you're doing, you can see that it could be equal to, is after, is on or after, before, during, not during. Sometimes it will say contains, or sometimes it's exact. So just be aware that those criteria change with the kind of information that you're trying to report. And then what we said was the due date is not equal to the date blank. So if it's blank, it's not going to show it. It has to have a date in there for it to show on this report. Then we sorted and grouped it by the due date. So that's how, from low to high. If we had done high to low, it would show us the farthest away in time to the newest. This down here was where you could color code things. This does nothing except make your thing pretty. So I'm not going to talk about it today, but you are welcome to play around with color coding. You'll notice in a lot of the reports that we give you, and some of you are starting to realize that a lot of the charts that you see in QuickBase is just a report. So if you think about in Trip Manager, when you're looking at your trip products, sometimes they're in green, sometimes they're in red, depending on the criteria. That's how you set that up. For you, you can just play around with it. I mean, you can have it auto assign colors, yes and no. you could, it defaults to no color coding, but it doesn't affect your report. You can turn off editing records from this report if you don't want people to do that, or viewing records from the report, meaning you can go, when I went to the contact from the report, you can stop that from happening. So it's just a report, can't do anything with it. And so you could sort of see how that was created then to create the report that turned out to be the activities list. Right.
Hey, Corey, we have another question here too.
Anyway.
Are there reporting features on all of the apps, or just like the sales manager and trip manager?
Right. They are under all of the apps, found the same way. So when I click on trips, I get that report and chart list. And so it should show it there. If you wanted to do a reporting of your tasks, if you wanted to do a report of your trip products or your attachments, a lot of these tables, you're not going to see anything, so there's not going to be anything to report. But if I went to, in fact, supplier manager, oh no, supplier manager is a bad one, except for you can see trade shows, right? So if you wanted to see trade, like our new trade show could give you reports and charts. So for instance, after a number of years, when you have a number of trade shows here, you could actually filter those trade shows down. So if there's a table up here, there should be filtering available to you. So looking at trip manager, we did that. Group accounting should have the same thing when you're looking at trips. I believe I pressed trips. Reports and charts, right? You can see when your rooming list was received. This is just one that was created. Sometimes you're going to see a report that doesn't apply to you, and that's someone has made an error by listing it into the common. We've tried to avoid that as much as possible, but occasionally one shows up that doesn't really apply to you, and you don't know why it's there. When you click on it, it will just show you the information reported for your company. And so some of them are kind of nice to have because you thought, well, I didn't know I could do that. And I'll give you a for example on that one. In Sales Manager, I believe under proposals, again, these are sort of all different because not everyone can see like Debbie's proposals or Carla's Orlando's. None of you can see that. That just happens to be something I can see. But you might be able to see a reschedule report. If you don't see one, then you could always create your own. But for instance, whoever was doing like work in this demo users, right? Because when the demo user does it, gets saved by names or whatever they called it at the time, because we're using this for checking things. But like for instance, this person was finding proposals by the date it was created, or the committed sales year, like or ones that need to be rescheduled or something of that nature. You'll also notice a couple over here. Oh, pending, like you can do a pending one, or let's see, like you can see here's my proposals in date edit order. Like I said, you could do that. You might see that on there, and it will still pull up your proposals in date edit order. It'll just be your proposals. You won't see the same ones I do. So sometimes it gives you sort of a jogs your oh, well, yeah, I could do that. I didn't think about doing that. Once you start playing with reports, your ideas start coming fast. Many of you know Sierra, who has been on a Coach and Go, or you've spoken to. She's our lead accuracy guru. And I distinctly remember when she started off with reports, it was like cascading. She's like, oh, I could report this and I can report this. So once you start down that road, you start realizing that you can do that. And one other thing I want to make mention, because it just reminded me, is sometimes it's hard to decide what the name of the what the name of that field is, right? So for instance, like I said, we're sort of in the process of changing anything that says tour consultant into salesperson, but right now you have to use the word tour consultant. But when you're on a trip, If you're like, oh, I just don't remember what like you wanted to know every student youth trip that you were taking versus any adult trip you were taking, right? So you could do that. You just had to remember that pricing type is the name of that field. And the way you can do that is go there and say, oh, look, this says pricing type. This says like account, school organization. So when you're looking at it, pay close attention to what the name of that field is so that you can use it in reporting later, because sometimes you'll forget. There are a couple of fields that are not named the correct thing. They're named something different so you understand what it's doing as opposed to that. And if you have any trouble finding a field, you're like, Corey, I really want to report on this field, but I can't find that field. Shoot me an email, give me a call, shoot me a text, and I'll tell you what the real name of the field is if you run across that. And you know there are a ton of fields in any one of these things. So, I mean, you know that there could be a lot of things to report. So, yeah.
We actually have an accounting question. So if somebody wants to be able to create or pull a report that will show within like a specific time frame how much money is owed to a specific supplier, can they do that through this reporting feature?
Okay, I know who you are. No. Yeah, I've spoken to many people about this. Yeah, the answer is yes, you can. It requires a little bit more work than what you're thinking to create a static report that show. Okay, so for instance, the place where you do this, by the way, is in Trip Manager. And again, you have to sort of remember what it is you're trying to report. You're not trying to report a trip. You're trying to report a trip product, right? So when you choose a trip product and you go to reports and you click on like you want a new report, right? And we're going to say a table report. I can create a table report very quickly that, and you can too. That what I'm saying is you can absolutely do this. Figure out what it is you want in the report. Figure out what the name of the fields are that you're wanting to report. Get them on the report. Then what you actually want to do is you can sort, right, and group. You sort of want to sort and group by numbers of things. So you could literally sort and group by, say, a supplier. This is where it gets a little tricky. And this is, by the way, for those of you who have asked for this, when you start to try to create one, you're going to see sort of the problems that you run across a little bit. So I want to sort it or group it by supplier name, right? And then I want to sort that by, I don't even know. Well, I'll just show you what. I don't know if it's going to work in my. I don't know how many trip products have been created for us, but we'll see what this shows. All right. So see all right. So for instance, we've used some. Here's all that we owe to the 9/11 Memorial. Here's all that we owe to the Academy Bus Charter Hoboken. And if you're asking why we chose any of these things, if you'll notice, a lot of them start with A, so they're first in the list of things. But you can see that we owe this much total. So in that report, you can filter it down by your trip end date or your trip start date, depending on how you want to do it. And you could say, I'd like my trip start, like, then we can choose, and this is where I don't think anything will report on mine because I don't know when the trips actually go. But on the same report, you can then add, oh, sorry, I went down to the bottom. You could filter products where the trip start date. Hold on. Oh, because it's coming from your trip start date is after, let's say, October 1st. And you might actually, yeah, let's see, trip end date is before, let's say December 31st. I think there's a trip going then. I can't remember, but when I filter down those dates, what this is showing me now, hopefully we're crossing our fingers. Yeah, they're showing me now all the people that I owe money to for that particular, for trips that go in that particular time. So if I were writing a check to Academy Bus, you'll see all of this, right? And the nice thing is here's 2 that go to Andretti, and it's totaling it for you. So this is a crude version of what you're looking for. So this does it. The reason that's taking me longer is because I want to make it look pretty, and I want you to be able to choose. Right now it's showing you everything, and if you like everything, you can create this report right now.
That's nice too, because if they want to do a monthly report on what their expenses are going to be and who they're going to have to pay, they can create this report and then run it every month. So
correct, they can. And what I'm trying to do is to have the report ready to where you only fill in the month, and then it creates the report for you to save a little time in having to just keep editing the report. So for the meantime, by all means, please do this and get what it is you need from that. But if you are wanting it to be pretty and super easy to use, that's going to take me a little while because I have to do some things in the background so that all you do is you press, you go to that report and it asks you what month you want to look at. That's sort of where we are. So by all means, do it, try it, do whatever, like test it. So absolutely. And you did see this would be a prime example of fields that don't make sense name-wise. So you'll notice that I had to use related trip product sales, related trip operations manager ID trip start date. Why is that? It's because the trip start date isn't coming from that product. It's coming from that trip, right? And so it has to get pulled into that trip, not, it's not just there because everything's connected. You only had to enter it once, so it's just put in different places. But you notice I typed in start date. Like when I did this, I typed in start, right? And you could actually run the report off your final product start date and time, right? But that's the time that you put in when booking it. You'll see the price valid start date, but that's for the price, not for the trip. So you can see that these are the trip start and end times. These are the requested ones. Start times, that didn't make any sense. So this was your only choices really for start date. But it is a lengthy name. And that's one of those things where if you were like, just which one is the trip start date? Call me and I will tell you because I can't rename them. I made it look normal to you when you're looking at it here. So when you're looking on a trip product, it will show you, it'll just say trip start date, but it's really named something else because it's coming from somewhere else.
Okay. Well, Corey, we have just a couple more minutes here, so I'm going to bring you back on the screen here.
Oh, let me redo my hair.
So as you all can see, there are a ton of features and some really rather robust reporting options for you. If you do have questions on reporting, because it is very involved, and again, you can customize it and you can create these reports, but we realize that you're going to have some questions as you're getting started. So you can email either one of us, and both of our email addresses are on your screen right now, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. If it's something that I can't answer, I would definitely forward it to Corey for you, so that way he can get back to you as well. So don't be afraid to ask more questions on this. And again, you're only limited by how many reports you want to do. I mean, you know how best to actually create the reports that you're going to need. So if you need help setting those up, let us know that anytime that you want to. And also just to remind you one more time that we are on YouTube, and you can follow us on LinkedIn as well. So please make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube or you follow us on LinkedIn. Corey, any parting words on reporting features in GTO?
Nope, just go in and have some fun. It's like a puzzle or a game to get those first reports done. But once you start figuring them out, the amount the amount of information that you can shuttle down into one report, so you're not dealing with everything at one time, is just amazing. Go for it. You can't hurt anything by creating a report.
And that brings up a very good point. Don't be afraid to play in the system. If there is something you don't understand, or if you can't find something once you've created it, that's again why we're here. Again, we want to remind you that we are a part of your community now. So any questions that you may have, any help that you may need as you're going through this process, reach out to us. We'll always be here to help you. And again, scrolling on the bottom, it will tell you that every Thursday at 1 o'clock, we are going to be doing GTO Coach and Go. We're covering features and different ways in which you can use the system to actually create a more efficient work environment for yourselves. That's why GTO was created. And we do hope that you continue to join us week after week. Corey, thank you once again for joining us. And for all of the rest of you, thanks for joining us as well. And we will see you next week.